Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast, a podcast designed to immerse you in the English language in a relaxed and natural way. My name is, of course, Gideon, and if you are a regular viewer or listener of this podcast, you might be thinking, what on earth is going on? It's not Sunday. It's not 10 o'clock in the morning. Why am I receiving this podcast today? Well, I put a question out on YouTube recently on their little community post saying that, through the month of August, I'm going to put out more content. And my original plan was to put out 2 short lessons and continue with the podcast every Sunday. But then so many of you said, well, to be honest, I would rather 2 podcasts a week. So here we are. So for the month of August, I am going to do my very best to give you 2 podcasts a week and also possibly a shorter lesson. So the podcasts will be going out every Wednesday and Sunday at 10 a.m. and then there will be a shorter lesson on Fridays. So if you can support it all, if you can in any way engage with the content, leave a comment, like and subscribe, it will really help me out. And hey, maybe this is something we can keep going far past August. But let's crack on with today's podcast. Now, this week's episode is about something that is very close to my heart. It's about something that I absolutely love, and perhaps my t-shirt, if you are watching on YouTube, is a little bit of a giveaway. We are going to talk about Formula One. But please, if you are not interested in Formula One, don't switch off. Okay, please don't go off of this channel thinking, oh, Gideon, I don't care about Formula One. I've had enough. No, please, stay with me. Because we're going to read an interesting article from the BBC. But even if you are not interested in Formula One, I promise you will come away with some new vocabulary and expressions, okay? And maybe after this article, it might spark a little bit of interest in Formula One. It might just tickle your fancy a little bit and you think, I'm going to check it out, which would make me really, really happy if that does happen. So all I ask is give me a chance, okay? And if you do like Formula One, like myself, then let's enjoy this together. So I would love to know right now in the comments, are you a Formula One fan or not? And if not, can I persuade you to be interested in it? So this is just a note from future Gideon that is editing this podcast. As you will see later on that I mentioned and referred back to this. So I am sticking to my word, but it is at this point I wanted to let you know that there might be spoilers. Okay, so if you haven't watched Sunday's race or don't know what happens, go watch the race and then come back and join us at the podcast. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know. Back to you, normal Gideon? Gideon that's in the past? I don't know. Okay, so just let me know in the comments now. But we're going to get into it because Formula One is an interesting thing. It's full of ups and downs, highs and lows. And this season definitely has given us that. So we're going to read an article from the BBC, which is entitled Disqualifications, Strategy and Mistakes. Formula One back to its unpredictable best. Okay, so we're going to read an article about this. As I say, I promise you will come away with some new vocabulary. So we're talking about Formula One going back to its unpredictable best. And if something is unpredictable, it means that you can't predict what is going to happen. And the reason the article is written like this is because, if I'm being completely unbiased, as much as I am a massive Formula One fan, it can go through stages where it feels predictable. You know what is going to happen. But the last few races, it's not been predictable. you don't know what's going to happen. So, and that's what has made it really exciting. So let's start with the first part here. Just as a little note, that picture there is Lewis Hamilton, a British driver, 7-time world champion. Brilliant guy. Now, if there are any big Formula One fans out there and I do get some information wrong, please forgive me. Okay, please. I might get caught up in it and then, relay some misinformation. So correct me by all means in the comments, but I do plead for your forgiveness. Okay, so let's start. And what we're going to do is just take each paragraph, chat about it, and just look at the vocabulary in a relaxed way. So, Formula One heads into its summer break after another engrossing race that wrapped up many of the year's storylines into one afternoon. So, there was a race at the weekend, and as it says here, that it's headed into its summer break, meaning there's a bit of a pause throughout summer to the next race, and that's where all the drivers go to their yachts, to their hotels, and just chill for a good few weeks. But it says, this has happened after another engrossing race. If we are engrossed with something, we are completely captivated by it. We are absorbed in it. It has gained all of our interest. And that's how yesterday's race was. It was captivating. It caught our interest. But why? Let's keep on reading. George Russell lost what would have been one of the most extraordinary victories of the season when his car was disqualified for being 1.5 kilograms underweight after the Belgian Grand Prix. But Mercedes nevertheless confirmed their remarkable revival after a difficult start to the season because Lewis Hamilton inherited victory from his teammate, who the seven-time champion had crossed the line right behind. It was Mercedes' third win in 4 races, a remarkable achievement given they were the 4th and sometimes even 5th best team over the first 5 races of the season. So, just as a note here, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but just a little warner for spoilers. Okay, this will go through spoilers of yesterday's race, and I've realised it's already too late for that. It's already happened. So, when I'm editing this, hopefully I remember to put a little spoiler alert note. Okay, if I didn't, and I've just ruined it for you, once again, I ask for your forgiveness. Okay, so it was an interesting one yesterday. George Russell, another English driver for Mercedes, he won the race. And it said it would have been one of the most extraordinary victories of the season. If something is extraordinary, it's not ordinary. It's not normal. It's unusual. And it goes on to describe it as remarkable because he didn't pit stop twice. Okay, many of the cars stopped twice throughout the race, but George Russell only stopped once, so he won the race. But unfortunately, afterwards he was disqualified because his car was underweight, meaning that it has to meet a certain weight requirement, but it would seem that George Russell's car was underweight, which would give him an unfair advantage. But Mercedes, they nevertheless confirmed their remarkable revival. If we revive something, we bring it back to life. So it's like the team has been brought back to life because Lewis Hamilton was second. So you've got George Russell finished first. He was disqualified. So, of course, that victory goes to second in line, which was his Mercedes teammate, Lewis Hamilton. He said that he inherited victory. So it was given to him. If we have an inheritance, perhaps when a family member passes away, it is given to us. So Lewis Hamilton gained the victory. But this was great for Mercedes because they've had a tough few seasons. But as it describes here, it was a remarkable achievement. Now, this was a big thing because it shows that they've got something now. They've got something they can work with, that they can hold on to. Let's carry on reading. Spa Stunner shows Verstappen is in a scrap. So Spa is the name of the track. It's in Belgium. I think the full title is Spa-Francorchamps or something like that. One of my favourite tracks. But we're talking about Max Verstappen here, which I'm sure you know about. He's been dominant. He's been fantastic over the last few seasons, just absolutely dominating with Red Bull. But it says here that he's in a scrap, meaning he's fighting a little bit here. It's not as easy as it was. Why? Well, let's see. Every race since Miami in May, when Lando Norris scored his breakthrough win for McLaren to stem the early Red Bull domination, has been close and unpredictable. We didn't expect to be competing with the McLarens or the Red Bull at this point in the season with how we started off, Hamilton said. So for us to now have closed up, it's going to be one hell of a second half of the season for sure. So here, Hamilton is talking that before the season, they did not expect to be close with the McLarens or the Red Bulls, but they are. He says, every race since Miami in May, where Lando scored his breakthrough win, breakthrough. That was where it all started. But ever since that point, the season is close, and unpredictable. We haven't been able to tell what is going to happen. Even here for the Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton. He says that for us to now have closed up, the gap between Mercedes, McLaren and Red Bull, Mercedes have closed up that gap. So he's saying, well, this is going to be a fantastic rest of the season. He went on to say, we can be carefully optimistic, but we have to prove ourselves with 10 races to go. And this is great wording, to be carefully optimistic, almost to say, cautiously optimistic. If we are optimistic, we remain positive. We look at things in a positive light. The antonym or the opposite would be pessimistic, to think negatively. But he's saying, we can be carefully, cautiously positive. Won't get too far ahead of ourselves. But, this is our chance to prove ourselves, that we're still big dogs in this event, Norris was left to another small, I don't know why there's a 6 in there. Let me just get rid of that phantom 6 and I'll start that again. Norris was left to another small but decisive error after running wide at the first corner dropped him from 4th to 7th and left him consigned to 5th place in a race the McLaren driver started as one of the favourites. Afterwards, Norris said he was maybe just trying a bit too hard and paying the price for that. And although Max Verstappen was unable to match the pre-race predictions that he would come through from 11th after a grid penalty for using too many engine parts, his eventual 4th place still extended his championship lead over Norris to 78 points. So a championship in which every race is now impossible to predict because the fight at the front between Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes, and sometimes Ferrari, is so close, still looks almost inevitably as if it will end up in Verstappen's hands. So let's break this down a little bit. So Norris was a favourite before the race to win. He was going to do well. If you're a favourite for something, it means you're top pick to win the race. And he started the race as one of the favourites, but it said that he was consigned to 5th place. He was sent to 5th place because at the beginning he made a very small but decisive error, meaning that the error almost made the decision for him. It was, it really changed the whole race for him. It produced producing a definite result. So because of that mistake at the beginning, it's the reason that he ended the race where he did. And afterwards, very honest of Norris, he said, maybe I was just trying a bit too hard. He said, I paid the price for that. If we pay the price for something, we reap the consequences of our actions. You pay the price for things you do. For example, random illustration here, but yesterday it was very sunny here in England. The sun was out. I didn't wear sun cream. I paid the price. I got a little bit burnt. I don't know if you can tell actually on camera, but yeah, I got a little bit burnt. I paid the price for that. So Norris was saying that he paid the price for trying too hard, which is a shame, isn't it? And it says, Max Verstappen was unable to match the pre-race predictions. So if we predict something, it's what we think is going to happen. Now, in Formula One, if you have a certain allotment of engines and transmissions that you can replace. But sometimes if you go over that or you do it too soon, I think, you get a grid place penalty. That means that you will start further down the grid. So Verstappen qualified first, meaning that he was supposed to start the race in first, but he started it in 11th. And everyone said, well, he's going to go through to first. The predictions were that, he could make it through the grids, but he only kind of made it to fourth. So it's interesting, this last point. It says that in a championship where it's impossible to predict what is going to happen between Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, and sometimes Ferrari, it's very close, but it still looks almost inevitably as if Max Verstappen is going to win. It's in his hands. And if something is inevitable, it's going to happen no matter what. You can't change it. And it's true, Verstappen is still very far ahead. So it does look like his win of the season, getting the title, is inevitable. But it's creating a lot more drama and great racing. So I'm absolutely fine with that. So we continue. Will this slow start cost Mercedes? But Belgium, talking about the weekend where the race was, underlined what a shame it is from the perspective of objective interest in competitive racing that McLaren and Mercedes started the season slowly. How different the prospect for the final 10 races would be had Verstappen not romped to 4 wins in the first 5 races, while these two teams struggled to find their feet. So it's saying here that Belgium underlined or clarified. If we underline something, we highlight it. What a shame it is from the perspective of objective interest. And that's a really interesting way of putting that. If we look at something objectively, you're looking at something or judging it, it's not influenced by personal feelings or opinions. It's impartial, unbiased. So looking at this without a preference for a particular team, it's kind of sad that Mercedes and McLaren started this season so slowly, because the rest of this season now would have been completely different. There would have been a title race. And it says here that had Verstappen not romped, just flown through 4 wins in 5 races, and these other teams struggling to find their feet, to feel grounded, to get going, to feel comfortable, we would have had a completely different season on our hands. Mercedes, while still fluctuating in performance from race to race, are on a roll. McLaren, the most consistent frontrunners, have let certainly 1 and perhaps 2 wins go begging. And Verstappen, despite his comfortable championship lead, is almost begging his Red Bull team to up their game. Just going to dissect that because we've got a lot of great vocabulary here. So it mentions that Mercedes' performance is fluctuating. If something is fluctuating, it's going up and down. It's changing very regularly. So Mercedes' performance is different from race to race. But at the moment, they are on a roll. If we are on a roll with something, we're doing well, being consistent. And it talks about McLaren, the most consistent front runners, being at the top. It said, they've let 1 or 2 wins go begging, meaning that they really had every potential and opportunity to win more races than they have, but they've just let them go. So you got that, McLaren could have won more. They could have been closer to Verstappen in the title race, but they've let it go. But on the other hand, You got Verstappen, whose performance is perhaps slipping a little bit. He's asking his team, which is Red Bull, to up their game. If you up your game, you perform better at a higher quality. If you're playing for a football team, your manager might say, come on, we need you guys to up your game. Be better. Perform well. That's what Verstappen's asking of his team. A lot of the other guys, they have done great races, Verstappen said, but they're quite far behind in the championship. For me, with the car that at the moment probably isn't the quickest in the race, it's about just limiting the damage and trying to be as close as I can every single time. And that's what we have been doing lately. Naturally, I would just hope that we can find a little bit more performance, because it will make our lives a bit easier in the race. Verstappen sounds like he is expecting a rearguard battle for the remainder of the season, albeit it should not be an especially difficult one, given the size of his points advantage and the quality of his driving. So interesting words here from Verstappen. I like that. They're racing really well, but the truth is they are quite far behind in the championship. And he says, we don't have the quickest race pace at the moment. So it's just about limiting damage and keeping as close as I can, being the best I can every single time, every race. He says, naturally, I would like a little bit more performance in the car because it will make life a bit easier for us as a team. Just take that pressure off. He says, Verstappen might be expecting a bit more of a battle this season, but that is a difficult battle for McLaren and Mercedes to bring because they are so far behind in points. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the season. Carry on to read that Norris would have to close on him by an average 8 points a race for the remainder of the season to beat him to the championship. That's doable, but difficult. So 8 points a race is a lot. So then it states that it's doable, but difficult. And this is a great word. If something is doable, it means that we can do it. Perhaps someone, I don't know what you do for a job, but someone might ask you to do a task and you might say, okay, yeah, that's doable. We can do that. So it is doable getting 8 points a race, but it's most certainly difficult. In the Constructors' Championship, though, Red Bull are comparatively on the ropes. 2 cars scoring that. And McLaren again outscored Red Bull in Belgium thanks to Oscar Piastri's 2nd place in addition to Norris's 5th. So you have driver championships, which is each driver, of course, scoring points per race. And then you have the Constructors' Championship. So that is like Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Alpine. They all have 2 drivers per team. So you have 20 drivers and 10 constructors. So as well as the Drivers' Championship, you have the Constructors' Championship. And it says here that the Red Bull in Constructors' Championship are on the ropes. And this, if you think about being on the ropes, it means that you're struggling a little bit. You're fighting. If you think of a boxer when he's kind of leaning back on the ropes, he's in a dangerous position. Well, that's where they are as regards a Constructors' Championship, because McLaren, again, are outscoring Red Bull as a team. So in that regard, we've got a race on our hands. We've got a fight on our hands. It goes on to read, they are now just 43 points behind Red Bull. And McLaren's quest to end the season as Constructors' Champions for what would be the first time in 24 years is well on course. Red Bull's problem is that only one car is scoring big points. Verstappen's teammate, Sergio Perez, has the latest in a long line of underwhelming races, dropping from a strong 2nd place on the grid to finish the last of the leading group of cars. He now looks certain to be replaced over the summer break. Just 2 months after a new year... just 2 months after a new 2-year contract was signed that was meant to keep the Mexican in his seat until the end of 2026. Reserve driver Liam Lawson and RB's Daniel Ricciardo are contending to replace him. Now, this is up for contention. This is up for discussion. So if you are a Formula One fan, please do get involved in the comments. And if you're not a Formula One fan and you're still with me here out of loyalty, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Again, let me know if the comments, if you're just here for the podcast. If you're not really interested in Formula One, but you're just here for the vocabulary and the chat, I would also love to know so I can give you a big thank you for continuing. And I hope you are still enjoying the podcast. I'm loving this. So McLaren, just 43 points behind Red Bull. And it says that their fight or quest for Constructors' Championship is well on course, meaning that they are on track to do it, to win. And the problem is that you've got Max Verstappen, who is scoring big points every race, but his teammate, who is in the other Red Bull, remember each constructor has 2 drivers, Sergio Perez, is underwhelming. If something is underwhelming, it's just not sparking any kind of fire. It's disappointing. It's just not doing what it should be doing. He's not having a positive impact, failing to impress. And he started the race second place and finished last of the leading group of cars. So he's really not doing well. So there is possibility that he could be replaced, possibly in the summer break, but that's open for discussion. So it says here that mistakes are what is holding McLaren back, and we'll keep on reading. McLaren have some upgrades to come in the final 10 races of the season after the summer break. They have so far developed fewer than Red Bull. They have so far deployed fewer than Red Bull. If they can iron out some of their small errors, they will make even faster progress. So during the summer break, you can upgrade your car. It says that they have deployed or used or put out fewer upgrades than Red Bull. So they're ready to put some of these upgrades on their car, which will iron out small errors. And sometimes in English, we say to iron out the creases. Get rid of the issues, the problems. And this will help them to progress faster. So speaking of the summer break, Norris said, "I just need to reset." We can all agree with that, can't we? We all need to reset at times, said Norris, whose error in absent-mindedly running wide into the gravel at the first corner, trying to avoid contact, cost him dearly. So if we do something as absent-mindedly, it's not really intentionally, it's just for that moment a lack of concentration. And that's what it was for him. It cost him dearly. So he's saying, well, I need this summer break just to reset physically and I guess mentally. He goes on to say, I've given away a lot of points over the last 3 or 4 races because of stupid stuff, mistakes, bad starts, turn 1 now. It's just silly things, not even difficult stuff. Turn 1, stay out of trouble. Try and make sure there's a gap and not get hit and put myself off the track. The pace is good. The team is doing an amazing job. In a way, I just want to contribute because we're on good form. The pace was strong today, but the last 2 or 3 races, I've just not clicked as much as I needed to and given up a lot of points and will come back stronger. I do respect this from Norris, just owning to one's mistake. He's just saying, I put my hands up here, guys. Basically, it's just not good enough. I'm making silly and stupid mistakes. And I'm a McLaren fan, I want him to do well, but he's owning up to it. So he says, I'm going to come back stronger. The pace is good, meaning the car is fast enough. The team's doing a great job. But he used this expression, I've not just clicked as much as I should. If we click with something, we connect with it. Sometimes you have this with a person, you might meet them and then you just click with them. You just connect. Well, he's saying, I'm just not clicking with the car, with my racing. So I need that to happen. Whatever it takes, I need to click with the car again. We go on to read, team principal Andrea Stella was forgiving. Lando got a bit distracted from what was happening on the inside and ran out of track, Stella said. It is marginal things. It just requires a little adjustment here and there. We work with Lando and Oscar to try and see all the opportunities in which we can improve individually, but also collaborate better to either be more prepared or use better our abilities and talents. It doesn't necessarily change our attitude, but it gives us some elements to analyse as to how some of the missed opportunities manifest themselves. For Lando, for instance, it looks like statistically there are some opportunities that tend to happen in the early stages of the race. So we need to check whether this is early stages of the race for a reason or it's just random. But like any other athlete or driver, Lando, with the support of the team, will have to think, what can I do better to make sure we capitalise on the good work we are doing? Great team principle there, very well worded. She's saying, there are mistakes there. It's marginal things, meaning, it's marginal, very, very small, little mistakes, but they're costing them dearly. So they just need to look at ways that they can collaborate, work together to eliminate these mistakes and, analyze how these missed opportunities manifest themselves, how they are happening, how they come to reality. And she says, Lando's just got to think of what he can do better to capitalize, to make the most, to benefit from the good work they are doing. It goes on to read, Piastri too was not faultless, not without fault, not without making mistakes. Despite following up his maiden win in Hungary last weekend with a strong third place on the road, right behind the Mercedes driver as he crossed the line and being elevated to second by Russell's disqualification. So the last race before Belgium, he gained his maiden win, his first win. And of course, because Russell was disqualified, that's right. I was just trying to work that out. But Piastri would have gone to second yesterday. So he had a good start. But again, he's not faultless. It's not only Norris that's making mistake. It says, he missed his marks at the final pit stop and cost himself 2 seconds, which may have cost him the chance to win. But given the unexpected difficulty of overtaking in the race, probably made no difference. So when they come into pit stop, there's a certain point that they have to stop, and then the tyres are changed within 2 and 3 seconds. But in the race, Piastri went a little bit too far. Doesn't sound like a big error, but in Formula One, that's massive. Seconds, milliseconds counts. Small errors notwithstanding. So not talking about those small errors. That's now 10 consecutive races in which they have scored a podium finish. Stella says, I keep hearing McLaren has the best car, but I keep pouring water on the fire. There are 4 cars that are pretty much at the same level, and there is a bit of variability, which is a function of the track and even the conditions to some extent. Like today, Mercedes did a good job. Ferrari too were in the fight in Belgium. Charles Leclerc finishing just 8 seconds from the winner and confirming that they have got on top of their bouncing issues introduced by an upgrade 4 races ago. So, Stella's saying we need to keep our feet on the ground here. We've got a good car, but so have others. We need to keep focused. And then she brings in Charles Leclerc, who is a Ferrari driver. They used to have issues that they kept bouncing on the track. But they've adjusted that now and fixed it. So she continues to say, Russell continues to say, the competition was really high today, Russell said, before he was disqualified. So, he's saying that, believing that he is a winner. It felt like the pace between myself, Lewis, Oscar and the Red Bulls, Charles as well, it was so close, which is a real surprise for everyone. So it's going to be a real battle. Oh man, I do feel sorry for Russell. That must have killed him when he found out he hadn't won the race and got disqualified. Not just penalised, not just a penalty, disqualified from the race. If the season started in Montreal, Mercedes' first genuinely competitive race, the championship standings would be looking very, very different. I agree with that. It's going to be great. There's so much motivation from all the other teams to get back to the front. From McLaren, from Ferrari, from ourselves. So for sure, it's not going to be easy. And, hopefully we see a good fight on our hands into next year. It's so true. I like Russell's point there. We have, because of all of this, we are ready for a cracking season of Formula One. So there you go. A little bit of an article there just about, recent races and the state of Formula One. If you enjoyed that, please do let me know. If you are a Formula One fan, let me know in the comments. I'm trying to create content which, it might not be right up your street every episode, but there's something that appeals to everyone. And as I said, if you're not a Formula One fan, but you stayed here for the vocabulary and for just chilling and relaxing with me, brilliant. Thank you so much. But please give me your thoughts on today's episode. If you like it, let me know and I'll continue with more of these. And I do hope throughout August to keep 2 podcasts going every week. So that is the end of today's podcast. On Friday, I will have a short vocabulary lesson coming out about money. Okay? So that's an interesting one to look out for. And then on Sunday, we will resume, of course, with our normal podcast where I'm going to have a natural chat with you about a few things that have been on my mind. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon. Have a good one, guys.